Today, we're going to be checking out the King in Yellow Overdrive from Lichtlaerm Audio. So for a while, people were wondering if and when Lichtlaerm would do their take on the iconic Tube Screamer circuit. I mean, so many of us metal guys like to use Tube Screamers and variants and boutique versions of them to boost our amplifiers. I know I do. So I was pretty stoked when they put this out a little while ago. I am a little late to the game, but fortunately my buddies over at Lichtlaerm in Germany sent this over for me to check out. So just like with everything that Lichtlaerm does, I mean, this is chock full of really good ideas. And of course, it has that really cool, unique look of the black enclosure with the metallic gold imagery on it. So what sets this apart, makes it different from other overdrives? Well, I mean, it's really got a lot of the Lichtlaerm ideas you'd come to expect. It has just an absolute ton of volume. There is an internal charge pump that takes the 9 volt up to 27 volts so that you have more headroom. It's less compressed, and it definitely feels that way. It feels good to play. You do have a few different clipping options, symmetrical, asymmetrical, LED clipping, so that you can get the kind of, again, right compression clipping option, and that does affect the volume, something we'll see a little bit later. Of course, you have your volume, your gain, and then instead of having just a tone stack, you actually have a 4-band EQ. Of course, you can control the low end to get it as tight or loose as you want. Then there's a low mid control, and the low mids, especially when it comes to high gain, the more you turn them up, the more kind of like of that nasal kind of honk you get. It gets things like cloudier. It's not where the clarity sits. Cutting those low mids a bit, both in an overall mix and going into an amplifier, can definitely help to clear things up and make things, sound wider and sit better with a mix and a bass in general. And so it's kind of cool to have that control here, so you can control kind of cutting out the mids you don't want while boosting the mids you do with the next control, which is the high mid control. So the high mid is going to be those cutting, aggressive mids that you want to push in an amplifier that are going to give you that cut and aggression. And then you have a high control, which is going to be the overall kind of top end with the pedal, how much clarity, and it kind of can make things sound a little bit more stringy or hi-fi the more you turn it up. And of course, you get less of that if you turn it down. So the EQ is pretty powerful, really helps you dial this thing in. And then it does have the dry-wet blend. But what's interesting about the dry-wet blend is, of course, it'll just blend in your guitar signal if you do it, but it also does have a parallel effects loop in it. And the blend knob on this will then, instead of blending in dry signal, will actually blend in whatever you hook into this. So you could come up with some really interesting combinations. Like, say you wanted to get a cool doom tone, so you wanted to boost your amplifier, but you wanted to blend in like a big muff style fuzz or just your favorite style fuzz so that it gets saturated and thick. You can do that with this and control just how much of that you get. Of course, you could do this with any matter of pedals, and I think that's a really cool idea. We're seeing this this kind of parallel loop feature on a few of their other pedals as well. It's definitely a really good idea. And something that I think is becoming a bit of a signature for Lichtlaerm personally. And with that parallel loop, you also do have a polarity switch in case, A, you need a pedal to play nice with this and it might be out of phase, so you can flip that phase, or if you're just wanting to make some weird, nasty sounds, so you flip the phase and make them opposite of each other, make them cancel out and get a bunch of weird sounds going on. You have a bunch of different options with this. So I think that about covers all of the features with it. We're going to hear this outside of a mix. It's going to be doing the same exact thing I did for the in mix. So I'm going to be plugging directly into this with my LTD MH1000, which has a set of Fishman RZK pickups. I'm using that on the standard voicing, and that's going to be going into the green channel on the high input on my PV6505 1992 original. And then all of that's going to be going into my Two Notes Captor X, which does have a IR blend of my VM1265 and DV77 speaker. It's mostly a DV77, but a little bit of VM1265 blended a taste. Actually, I have a Dropbox link down below if you want to check that out for yourself. And because I do want to play with that parallel loop and blending feature, I'm going to actually at one point put a Medusa from Lichtlaerm, their kind of take on an HM2, one of my favorites, if not, it's my favorite HM2, let's just be honest. It's my favorite HM2 style pedal. I'm going to blend that in so we can get some really nasty, interesting tones going into the same setup here on my 6505. And then finally, because it is a tube screamer and an overdrive, we're just going to hear it into the clean channel of my Friedman BE50 Deluxe so we can hear how it performs as an overdrive and just get a pretty well-balanced view of this thing. Let's check it out. So all the tone shaping features on this thing really did allow me to get a modern, cutting, very tight but aggressive tone on the green channel of my 6505, which is definitely not a modern or aggressive sounding channel or setup. Definitely took it there and got a pretty brutal tone. I mean, I had no doubts that it would, but super easy to dial in. Basically bump the high mid to where it sounded right, bump up a little bit of the high just to get, you know, the kind of clarity and sheen that I wanted, and then cut the low and the low mid to where it feels right, so everything is still chunky, but I'm not getting any of those unpleasant low frequencies or low mid frequencies mudding things up. I tend to like this a little bit too with the gain turned up just a hair, just to get that extra saturation and aggression to it. Really made the thing come alive. Now what I thought was really cool was being able to blend in that Medusa. I got the tube screamer I wanted, but then I also got that super just nasty nasalness from the HM2, but I was able to blend in just how much I wanted to get a really like interesting and aggressive tone. And finally, it's plenty serviceable as an overdrive. I don't personally use overdrives into clean channels for my own breakup or anything like that. I don't do, you know, kind of classic rock or blues rock stuff or anything, you know, lower gain like that, but it has so much flexibility tonally, and you could blend in other stuff with this into that parallel loop. You could create a lot of cool different things. So this isn't just for metal players. There is a lot of utility here for all sorts of music. It's essentially a Swiss Army knife of an overdrive, and I'm definitely happy with it. I knew I probably would be, because at this point, everything I try from Lichtlaerm is awesome, but it's good to add another one to the list that's just really cool and something I can recommend. But thanks for watching, guys. Stay metal.